So let's get started. And like I said, tonight is really unique. I haven't done one of these in a long time, but just a couple things. If you're interested in growing your library, getting better books, I have done the Mastering Your Library series. I've actually done it several times. The last time was with Logos 8 back in 2020. And it's still relevant because the books are still there in your library. And there's even a Logos, I think I do this as far back as Logos 4. So take advantage of the most recent edition, but if you just search Mastering Your Library, you'll see all the different ones there. So the question is, why is this important? Well, building an adequate digital library in Logos is expensive. We all know that. We pay a premium for the Logos version of the book, especially when you compare it to Kindle. Additionally, not all books are created equal, and therefore one must be selective when purchasing resources. And that's my goal tonight. I want to give you books that I've been using for the last 27 years or over the 27 years that I have found absolutely dependable, resources that have been very useful, practical, and they're go-to books. Books I often reuse because they are just so helpful. Now, the way this is going to be done tonight is technically I'm going to hit 20 categories, and we'll hit more than 20 books. I kind of changed this midstream before I could change the title of the webinar, but you're going to definitely get 20 books. But I thought I'd focus on the Bible study categories and then some additional categories beyond that. And so that way you kind of understand the purpose of the book and where it fits in the Bible study process. The first one is really key, and I didn't even put the own in there yet. I should have. So let me go ahead and do that. And the Net Bible has updated this to a second edition, okay? And that's what we're looking for, is the Net Bible second edition. Here it is. And I want to do a couple things. So they actually sell now an interlinear version of this, which means you can right-click on the English words and get access to the Greek and Hebrew. And you can do that by just clicking on the Alpha Omega icon right here. Very useful. And when you do that, you can see it. You'll also notice at the bottom, I've got some TNs, which are translator notes, and I also have SN, which is the study notes. So this one book has pretty much everything. Now, to see the footnotes down there, which I definitely recommend you turn on, is you go to the top right and click the 3 vertical dots. And what you're going to look for is columns, and most likely it's set to none. You're going to want to choose 1. And as soon as you do that, you'll get the syntactical notes or the translator notes and the textual notes. Now, if you don't want the interlinear on, I would just turn it off. And now you can see a lot of information in there. Very, very powerful. Now, when you're in the footnote or in the footnote view or this one column view, you're going to want to move the pages down here at the bottom right. That's what's going to be a little bit different. So, I mean, if you could use a scroll wheel and that works the same, but this gives you more precise control of going forward and backward. And as you can see, the Net Bible is wonderful because it's giving you some study notes, but textual notes. And those textual notes give you insight about the text. I just wrapped up Mark chapter 16. I just finished preaching through the whole book of Mark. And when you get to chapter 16, verse 9, you're going to see these brackets. And basically from verse 9 through 20, the end of the chapter, the earliest manuscripts do not have these. We believe they've been added, though the content has been borrowed from the other 3 Gospels, but it really is not, we believe, part of the original text. And so if you think about it, that means verse 8 is the last verse. And it's right at the moment, very gripping moment, then that's the ladies, went out and ran from the tomb, for terror and bewilderment had seized them, and they said nothing to anyone because they were afraid. And then, of course, the other 3 Gospels speak of Jesus' resurrection, etc. So this textual criticism is important because it's going to tell you about these things and why. And that's a big deal, okay? In fact, you can see the details right down here. The Gospel of Mark, right here, note number 9, ends at this point in some witnesses. There they are, and including 2 of the most respected. There you go. And then you can see the rest of the points, the unlikelihood, and you can see there's quite a few notes there. All right. A second book along those same lines is Brutes Metzger's. And this particular book is huge because it's kind of been the standard. And this too is going to get into the topic of textual criticism. That is there anything significant going on in the text from the original copies or from the copies that we have? And so you can see here, he's got quite an extensive amount of information to walk you through why he believes 16:9 through 20 should or should not be in the Bible. And so this will really educate you and make sure that you're not missing anything significant. So be aware of that. And so Metzger is really the definitive one. And what's nice about Metzger, it's accessible. It's made to be understandable. So it's not going to get too technical, but it will give you the evidence you need to understand. And so those two books, hands down, are great for this. And yes, Walter, the book that I posted there that you can download in the chat box, that's the personal book. It's just missing that first link, own, because I picked up the book late last night and I forgot to make that update. Okay, so let's move to the next part in the Bible study process, and that is outlining the New Testament. You've seen me do this. I can't stress this enough. There's no better resource than this. Now, you're going to see this happen with the open text or some bug in Logos. So I'm going to go ahead and open it manually, and I'm just going to type in open text in the library window, and then I'm going to locate clause visualization and click on the title. Now, the reason I am such a big fan of this book, in fact, in my dissertation that's being revised right now, this is a big component of it. And what makes this book special is it identifies the primary clause, that is the main idea. And it also identifies the subordinate clause, that is the secondary ideas. And so with this resource, you can, and I have training for this, you can learn very quickly what the main idea is, make a list, and then you can basically build your preliminary outline from this book. And then you can have the confidence that at the end of the study process, you have accurately outlined the book. And a great example, I always use Matthew 28, 16 through 20, and I'll go right down to 19 through 20. It's a famous passage, you all know this, therefore make disciples. And there's multiple verbs there. There's make disciples, there's go, make disciples, baptizing, and teaching. And the question is, which is the main verb? And if you look closely, and again, there's a webinar that covers all this, the go is marked by a P, predicator for verb. So's make disciples, so's baptizing, and so's teaching. But if you look closely, the verb for go is connected to an embedded clause. That's a secondary idea. Same with baptizing, it's connected directly to EC, and so is the teaching. The only verb that's connected directly to the PC is make disciples. So the best way to understand this passage is the main idea is make disciples. Now, make disciples is defined by three actions: go, baptizing, and teaching. And so in a matter of moments, without you being a Greek scholar, just by reading this, you can identify the main point of the passage, and never again will you wonder what's the main idea. This is such a big help, and like I said, I've got lots of training on this covered. So definitely want to get this resource, open text, very useful. So the next point is structuring the text. This is pretty cool. And again, what I'm trying to do is identify the best book or one of the premier books. We could spend all day talking about books. I just want to be very precise here. Okay, so the first one is the literary structure of the Old Testament, Genesis to Malachi. So it's Old Testament only. And what this author does is identify typically chiastic structures or other parallelism going on in the text. So the Song of Solomon is a giant chiastic structure. So here it is from chapter 1 through chapter 8. And you can see 1 and 2, opening words of mutual love and desire. And the way a chiastic structure works is you parallel the letters. So A goes with A prime, B with B prime, C with C prime, and D. So A, opening words of mutual love and desire, goes with closing words of mutual love and desire. So these are connected thematically. Then the young man's invitation to the young woman to join him in the countryside, young woman's invitation to the young man to join her in the countryside. So same invitation, but man first, woman second. Then we have the young woman's nighttime search for the young man, and then we have the young woman's nighttime search for the young man. and their speeches of admiration. And then right at the center is the wedding. So this chiastic structure helps you see these thematic themes. It also can help you in interpreting and seeing where the natural breaks are. So Dorsey walks you through in great detail all these books, which I absolutely love. And you can see he goes even further. Some chapters he'll dig even deeper, even by the number of word counts. So it's very fascinating, these chiastic structures. And so you really want to take advantage of this resource. Absolutely love it. The other one, which I would be remiss if I didn't mention, is the Companion Bible, which, by the way, Logos has made that a searchable Logos book, which is great. But for like $1, you can get the facsimile edition, which can be handy at times as well. Now, not every book and every chapter, every verse is outlined, but many are in the Companion Bible. So here we are in 2 Samuel 21, but let's go to Song of Solomon. That way we're being consistent, okay? So again, you match the A's with the A prime and so forth. So there's the introduction, right? And then there's the conclusion. They may use different labels, but there you go. And then there's a B structure, but within that B is the Shunammite and her beloved. And you can see that there's some parallel here and so forth. Now, this one doesn't have a center, which is why I like this book as a complement, a way of checking things. And very, very cool. All right, so these books are wonderful. And when you go to that section, by the way, so let's go to 112 actually. There we go. You'll see that sometimes they'll add a little more detail. And if we go to 12, look at this. So C is broken down even further. So there's this kind of overall structure that's given at the beginning of the book, and then there's the individual structure that's given throughout the book. And so that makes it really easy. So you can see C, D, but then we get here and we get to the E. And now we've got these 3 points here, E, F, E, and so forth. So it can be a little tricky to read, admittedly, but nevertheless, you get all this great information. Plus, it does a good job of identifying keywords, which I like as well. All right, so structure is important because structure gives us insight and help for interpretation, particularly with the Psalms and Proverbs. All right, let's talk about lexicons. Now, there's a vast amount of resources that you can buy, from super scholarly to super lay level. And believe it or not, this is one of my favorite, and I use it like 90% of the time. And here's why. This is rooted in all the scholarly works. So you're getting all the benefits of a BDAG and other Hebrew lexicon, well, that's a Greek lexicon, and other like BDB lexicons for the Old Testament, but you're getting the non-technical, but you're getting all the precision, and that's what you're after. The truth is, most words are pretty straightforward. The reason you want a scholarly lexicon with lots of articles is if you're struggling to understand what that word means. But most words are pretty straightforward, and so this one basically lays it out. So I've opened up to the Hebrew word ab, or father. You can see in this case there are 9 different definitions. Now, if you're wondering, boy, how, John, did you get it outlined like that? If you click the 3 dots here, and you'll notice Logos has changed the menu, you'll see a reformat option. Click and expand that. You'll see outline formatting. You want to check that box. That will turn it from paragraph to this format. Now, the downside of a lexicon like this is it has very few cross-references, so it's not always easy to identify the passage, but most of the definitions are so straightforward and the context is pretty clear, you can figure it out. Now, the other reason this is great is because if you go to the top left, you'll see that the drop-down menu opens up and links you to the DBL, the Hebrew and Greek GK numbering system that Zondervan put out, Strong's numbering system, and the TWOT. And this also works for the New Testament and the Aramaic. So that means you can link this book to these other ones. So let's choose the TWOT. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the parallel button. I got way too much paralleling here. So let me turn all these off. And let me just do the TWOT. Okay, so there's the TWOT. And now I'm linked together. And I'm going to close my menu to give some more real estate. So there's my lexicon at the left, and then there's the Theological Word Book of the Old Testament at the right, and now I can read. So this gives me the best of both worlds, and that's why I like this resource. So fantastic. And it also has the Lohnidah. This is pretty interesting. Now, I call it the loose Lohnidah because it's not really precise. But let me give you an example of why this is powerful. So let's go to Ephesians 2:8. All right. For by grace you've been saved through faith. So I'm going to right-click on saved. I'm going to choose Lohnidah. And then I'm going to search all open. That's the easiest way to do this. And then I'm going to click on book and go right to my DBL. You can see the Lohnidah number appearing in a variety of definitions. And so this can link me to words that in the Old Testament, Hebrew words that might be synonymous in meaning. And that can be very, very powerful. It can help you find synonyms. It also can be used to find word choices that maybe weren't used in the Old Testament for a particular passage. So we could look at someone being saved in the Old Testament, look at that Hebrew word and ask the question, why that word and not these? And so it can really offer some wonderful insight. So just the sheer amount of linking and searching you can do in this book is amazing. So let's close out these resources. And okay, so the symbols on the New Standard Bible, how do you turn them on, Sylvia? So real quick, great question. So if you click on the three dots in the shape of a pyramid, this is your visual filter. And you want to locate the menu called Reformat and click and expand that. And then you want to click and expand Bible text. And there is your options. You want to make sure Bible text is selected and all these options. And that will work on any Bible. So you could click this little circle here and say showing all appropriate books. And now you've made those setting changes for each book. All right. So I'm just clicking on all these little circles. And now I've added the symbols. And let me know if that answered your question. Oh, good. All right. So let's go from lexicons. And like I said, the DBL, it comes as a set of 3, or you can buy them individually. You may even have these in your library. One more thing I do need to show, almost forgot. So one of the other benefits is that if you click on this menu here at the top left and choose the Hebrew word, the lemma, and you then click on the 3 dots and choose link set, and then make sure the number or the letter matches. So link set A, you can see right there on the top of the tab. We'll go to our Bible, link set A. There it is. And now if we click any word, let's say remember, the DBL will jump from wherever it's at to that specific word. So I really love this feature, and it allows me to really study. And again, if you set up the parallel resources, if you want more information, just add a very technical one like BDAG, let's say, and we'll do that. And then whenever you want to look at something more in depth, you just tap that little parallel button, and now you're in the article. The advantage, you'll notice too that my verse is being highlighted. And that is a great feature of every lexicon, which you should enable. So click the 3 dots. And what we're looking for is the emphasize. So expand emphasize. And you want to check the box current references. And that's a really good one. It's also worth checking corresponding words with a click, same surface text, current dictionary lexicon entry, worth doing that as well. All right, now if I jump to a different passage, let's say, where is a different passage? Philippians 3:20. All right, there I am at Philippians 3:20, and there's the definition highlighted. The key verse within that definition is highlighted. So that's really useful. So I love that feature of highlights. I love the feature of linking. And as you can see with the parallel resource, we can get in and out of more in-depth lexicons. All right, so let's go to the next one, grammar. Now, this is a difficult topic because there are a multitude of grammar books available. And so what I wanted to do for you was keep it simple. And that is a resource that you can use pretty much every time you study, which I almost use this one like that. It's called the Biblical Hebrew Companion, or the Biblical Greek Companion for Bible software users. And what makes this book special is it actually goes through all the jargon that's associated with morphology and grammar and gives you these great definitions, some really helpful visuals, exegetical insights, and so forth. And so this will explain some of the technical morphology, but in a real practical way. And you can see what it does and then an exegetical insight. This is very useful. So when you're studying the Bible and you're studying morphology and you're wondering, okay, let's go down to something a little more technical. All right, what's the PL? You're probably seen PL in the Hebrew. So we click on PL. It's the stem, usually followed, and so it tells you how to observe it, but we already can with the morphology, what it does. The PL's verb stem can signify several things, but two are most common. First, most common nuance of PL stem is factative, and that simply means that the action of the verb is making something a fact. That is, it's causing something or someone to be in a state. So for example, to be unclean. So in the PL stem, to cause something or someone to be unclean. So I love the simple definitions. They're accessible. I love the exegetical insights, giving you a biblical example of how to apply it and so forth. So what it looks like, what it does, an exegetical insight all the way through. And this is both for the New and the Old Testament, Hebrew and Greek. So both links will take you to both of those resources. Absolutely wonderful. All right, let's go to cross-referencing. And I have a couple here. Obviously, the new treasury of scripture knowledge. If you don't have that, you got to get it. And it's an absolute wonderful resource, over 500,000 cross-references. I typically will take this book and link it to my Bible. So I'll do link set A, click on that letter A. I'll open up my Bible. I'll do the same thing, click the three dots, link set A. And that way, wherever I go, I've got the verses there. I also will at times use the power lookup. So I'll go to tools and I'll type in power look and we'll do power lookup. And now what I'll do is I'll select the words for, or I'll select the verses for a particular phrase. In this case, we are. So when I do that, I now can get the full cross-reference at the far right. That makes this book very useful. Otherwise, you're floating your mouse and you're reading each one slowly. If you're doing a lot of work in the new treasury of scripture knowledge, the power lookup is your best friend. And because you can select a phrase, you'll only populate that with the verses that you've selected. Very useful. The other advantage of the new treasury over the older one is the additional symbols. Check mark, significant, clear reference. We have half moons, which tells you there's a contrast. We have a star, which means this is a clear, let's see, I spent a while since I played with this one. More cross-references, or this is a clear cross-reference, and a significant cross-reference. And I think the star also means there can be more, or it's the plus means more cross-references at the verse. So if you go to 26:18, you get more cross-references for that. So I love this list. It's so helpful. It really is amazing. And it'll cross-reference by a word, a phrase, a topic, a theme, etc. Now you'll notice that my Psalms are purple. And that's because I want Psalms and Proverbs to appear. How do you do this? So let's do this. Let's go to Documents. Let's go to Visual Filters, but let me see if I have it under Treasury. Nope. So let's just create I forgot where maybe it's under Psalms. I don't want to repeat. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so I have Psalms, New Treasury of Scripture Knowledge. So basically you go to Documents, you go to New, and you go to Visual Filter, all right? And then what I did is I put in PS space because that's how the text appears, and that's how I can separate PS from some other word that starts with PS. And then I just basically selected purple. Nothing complicated there. And then for Proverbs, I made